Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Fuck J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number 1 in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome, everyone. This is Tiger Claw Radio, episode 206. I am the curator of the family collection, your host, Critical Failure. Let's jump right into it. I got quite an episode for you this week. This is the retro game collecting episode, where it all happens. This is where I was really on fire, and I kind of, especially van casting, a lot of good stuff. So let's jump right in, and we got let's see what we got in the vault in terms of chip tunes. New Well Opportunist from Blorb. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Very, I don't know, I like it. It sounds like one of those tracks that I wouldn't typically like, but for some reason that one, maybe just because it's catchy, seems to resonate with me. Alright, let's not waste even a second of time. Let's dive right into the Vancast action, right here on Tiger Claw Radio. How we doing? Monday morning, it's the Vancast. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a good start of the week. I'm rolling off to work. It's wet out this morning. It's like it rained last night. I don't know. It feels like it's raining now, but it's not. Oh wait, yeah it is. It just started picking up just as I said that. Spooky. All right, well I guess we're driving to work in the Monday morning rain. I spent last night looking around at Sega Master System stuff on the internet. I have a big when I first started looking at the prospect of picking up Sega Master System games, I was afraid that the price point was going to be way too high, because the first game I thought to look up was Phantasy Star, the original Phantasy Star, and it's a lot of money. But there are a few games, not many, but there's a few games that I really want to get a hold of that are actually at an attainable price point. If you look up Sega Master System, at least on eBay, if you look up Sega Master System games and you sort it from lowest price point, there's several titles that you're going to see a lot of, like great baseball and great basketball and great golf or whatever. A lot of those Master System sports games. I'll probably pick up great baseball just because I was a fan of all of those Nintendo baseball games. Baseball was something that there was a lot of on the NES, and I dug those games a lot. So I'll probably get that, especially since it's really cheap. But the first real acquisition I have my sights set on is Double Dragon for the Master System. Now that runs about $10, which seems, I don't know, looking at Double Dragon for the Master System is like a weird thing, because it's not just how much it costs. This is a game that's like driving home the concept of just how much games cost now. Because there was a time when spending $10 on a single cartridge for me was just like, there's no need to do that ever. With a few notable exceptions, it's just something I didn't do. But games cost a lot more now. They really do. So Double Dragon's one I have my sights set on. I think that's where I'm going to start. That and Great Baseball. And also Hang On. Super Hang On is available, I think, for the Genesis, but there's just not Super, but just Hang On. That Sega motorcycle race game, like Outrun but with a motorcycle. That they have a version of that out on the Master System in like a double cart. That's also very attainable. So those are some early price point Master System games I'm going to get to complement my budding Master System collection. Right now I just cleaned up my office at home. It's really nice. I got a couch in there now, so I can relax and play some games. Got my computer set up. I have a secondary TV, so I can hook consoles up to it. So that's looking nice. And the Master System is it's not the only system hooked up, but that's what's getting played right now on the TV. And I started with Bonanza Brothers. That's a fun game. And I moved on to Rampage. Rampage for the Master System is also very fun. I haven't played it for a long time leading up to this. See, because I typically play Rampage on the NES, right? It's an old NES game, one of the classics. But so moving from the NES to the Master System, I think is easier because it's been a long time since I played that. So I don't draw the parallels directly, I guess. I don't know. I found it easy to pick up, we'll just say that. I remember in the early 2000s, late 1990s, when the PS1 was still the hot system. Speaking of Rampage, where the Rampage games kind of made a comeback. Do you guys remember that? There was like Rampage World Tour on the PS1, and there was a couple of PS1 Rampage games, and they all came out within like a year or so of each other. I don't know if I ever got to play those. I would be interested in seeing how much they would cost these days. Hang on a second. Drive time. I have not bought a PS1 game in a while. That was another thing I looked at. There's a couple of blaring, I was going to say there's a couple of blaring gaps in my PlayStation collection, but I really don't have much of a PlayStation collection. It's more like I've got a bundle of games. I haven't reached to all areas of the PlayStation library. I've retained a few awesome games. I used to have an awesome PlayStation collection, and I had to sell it for grocery money, many, many years ago when I was not doing as well off as I am now. So what I have left is what I now call my PlayStation collection. But anyway, long story short, a few games I was just thinking about getting on the PlayStation. Specifically, I wanted a Crash Bandicoot game. I have Crash Team Racing, but I don't have any of the main series Crash Bandicoot games. The last couple years at MagFest, I usually end up playing one of the Crash Bandicoot games in the console room, at least for a little while. So I looked that up. I put out a couple bids on Crash 2, and I think Crash Bandicoot Warped. But the original Crash Bandicoot apparently is that game is money apparently. Not Grail price point. We're not talking $50+, but game only. You're looking at like $15 or something like that, which seems like an awful lot of money. Especially when a lot of those early Crash Bandicoot games were. I'm going to go ahead and say it. A lot of those games were really similar. They really were. I remember Crash Bandicoot 2 being far superior to the original game anyway. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm remembering it differently. But Crash 2 was the one where they introduced the polar bear, right? For the first time. And you could ride the little cute polar bear, and you would get chased by the big mama polar bear. I don't know. I think I'd like to have that game again. My older brother had that on the PlayStation back when we had the PlayStation, like when it was brand new. He had Crash 2 and I think whatever they called the third one. I can't remember if it was 3 or Warped. But he had a couple of those Crash Bandicoot games. And we had a lot of fun with them. Alright, another one I was looking at. Just briefly, I haven't locked onto one of these games yet, but Spyro the Dragon. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. I haven't. I feel like I gotta pause this so I can cough for a second. But I'm surrounded by cars. I don't want to start punching buttons on my phone. Okay. I have never played a Crash Bandicoot game. I remember when Crash Bandicoot came out, and I remember it was the parallel was drawn between that and I'm sorry, not Crash Bandicoot. Let me try that again. I have never played a Spyro the Dragon game. The little purple dinosaur thing. I remember when Spyro first came out. I remember people really liking it, and I remember the parallel being drawn between Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot. I just never got there. And for years I've seen these games come up on YouTube. They show up here, show up there, and they always look like, yeah, that looks like a game I'd really like. And I just never did it. So I looked those up, and those are even more expensive. What the heck, man? Did I miss the window for Spyro? Is that not an attainable game now? I wanted to try, because it's been a long time. That game is a franchise, it's been around a long time now. I wanted to start back on the PS1, right? Because that was my era, I guess, when I was really impressionable and the games were coming out. PS1, it's kind of my time. Looked up Spyro the Dragon, didn't get anywhere with it. I will revisit that at a later date. For now, I'm just sticking with my Master System. I got a couple things in the mail that I'm waiting on as well. I made that order from AliExpress. I'm sure I talked about this last week. I ordered like a fistful of repros. Specifically Splatterhouse 2, Mega Bomberman, Phantasy Star 4, and Contra Hardcore. No hacks this time. All high dollar desirable games that I just wanted to own for cheap, because I don't care if the carts are genuine or not. I really do not care if the carts are genuine or not. God bless repros for making video games affordable again. But they haven't shipped yet, and I went in and checked the order, and AliExpress was like, yeah, we're going to cancel your order if it doesn't ship within a day and a half. I'm like, ah, jeez. I forgot that about AliExpress. It's like you can order stuff, but whatever you order, you got to be patient because it's going to take a long time. So, that's fine. We'll see. I've also got Dual Masters for the Game Boy Advance on its way. That's straight, like, domestic eBay purchase. That should be here, just in a few days. That was coming to me as a recommendation from Hemrock. I tried it a little bit via the Webernet. Kind of checked it out. It seemed really cool. But yeah, I pulled the trigger on that, I think, last week, and it just hasn't got here yet. I like collectible card games that are put into video game form, where from around that time, because like there's no DLC on the Game Boy Advance. They weren't able to make that work yet. So if you bought a collectible card game, all the cards are unlockable on the cartridge in one form or another, and I think that makes them really cool. Pokemon trading card game for the Game Boy Color is an amazing, legendary game. Like, oh man, that's a cartridge that's worth $10. If you got a Game Boy Color and you can still go back to it and play it, like really put time into it, the Pokemon trading card game is so good. It's so good. It really is. I liked that game a lot. Where was I? Yeah, Master System, and then my Genesis purchases, and that's really where I'm at now. What I'm actually playing, I got my Sega hooked up. It's kind of in a corner. It's not in the best spot in the world, but I do have it hooked up. You'll see it in the video at some point soon enough. And I've been playing Metal Sonic. I think that's been my favorite game. I've really been digging that. Here, hang on a second. I need to make a quick adjustment. There we go. Get some air conditioning. I'm playing Metal Sonic, and I'm digging it because I'm not. It's like a new, it's a new Sonic experience for me, a new classic Sonic experience. Not one of the the newer games. And I'm playing it, and the levels all feel new, and I'm curious, is it like a total conversion with new levels completely, or are these levels from a game I'm just not familiar with? That's one thing I'm not so sure about, because I know the first couple Sonic games pretty well, but the later ones I only kind of tried. Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, they're both good games, very good games, but I'm not as familiar with them as I am the first two. So I don't know, we'll have to see. But Metal Sonic is really good. It really is. It's fun. It's a fun game. Let's see where we're at now. We're about 15 minutes in. I guess we'll call that it. I have been looking up console games with fervor. Well, I mean, there's one more point I haven't touched on yet. I've been looking at getting a new console. Not like a new one right now, but I'm picking out the next console to set my sights on. Maybe, Christmas is coming, might ask my wife for something. looked at a couple things. One thing I looked at was the Retron 5. Now, the reason I was thinking about the Retron 5 was because I thought it might be nice to have that system not hooked up to my regular setup, but that one alone on the main TV that's out where the kids are. So like I have my regular, I have my authentic Sega Genesis and my authentic Super Nintendo and my NES and all that stuff, but those are protected. And then I have this clone out there, where the kids can play. That's available. That was one idea I had. One thing that really got me into that idea was the idea that it has a Game Boy Advance slot on it. Because I don't own a GameCube, and the Game Boy Advance converter for the GameCube is very expensive now. So that was one thing I liked about it. And I like that, the Retron 5 is like $125 or so. So if you're just thinking about playing Game Boy Advance games on the television, the Raspberry Pi is a cheap way to go. Just get the Raspberry Pi, $40 will get you everything you need, and then you can just play the ROMs. But the thing is, I didn't really want to play the ROMs in this case. To play a Game Boy Advance game, I thought it might be nice to have the access to play it on my legitimate hardware, and then resume my save. Hang on a second. Resume my save on the television. That was an idea that appealed to me. Whereas if you play with a Raspberry Pi, yeah, you can play it on the TV, but you're not going to resume your save file on the regular hardware. I want to be able to just pop that cartridge out of my Game Boy, my GBA SP, pop it out, pop it right in the system, play it on the TV. In fact, I looked around at the idea of like a clone system that just ran GBA games. Because I'd pay probably $40 or something like that, $30, $40, I don't know. I couldn't find one, doesn't exist. That'd have been cool, right? No, it didn't exist. So there's that. I've thought about the Retron 5. One thing that stopped me from pulling the trigger is I've heard conflicting reports about the inputs. I know the controller is bad that comes with it, but it has options for legitimate hardware controllers. So you can, play Nintendo, you can just plug in your Nintendo controller and you're good to go. You don't have to deal with that monster it comes with. But I heard conflicting reports about input lag, which would be a deal breaker for me, even a tiny bit of input lag, because it makes a difference. You can't play those Twitch Nintendo games like Ninja Gaiden and stuff with any input lag at all. It just won't work. But I've heard conflicting reports about it. Some people say it's got it, even on the wired controllers. Some people say it's because people aren't setting up their televisions properly, like they're not putting their TVs in gamer mode or something so that they drop the filters. I don't know. That kind of made me wary about it. It's like $125. I'd rather just buy, add another classic console that I do not have to my collection. Like I'm in this big Sega kick right now. Maybe it's time to finally get a 32X, or like a Sega CD or something. I don't know. The thing that stops me from really zeroing in on a new console, apart from the fact that I'm having fun with the Master System right now, is that the console that I would buy changes every time I think about it, and that tells me I'm not ready to buy a console. You know what I mean? I think at this time last week, what I wanted was a Coleco Gemini to get my Atari 2600 on. I still want to get one of those things one day. Where am I at? Now I'm really going to call it a day. I'm on my way to work. And I guess we'll throw it back to the nice, comfortable Panzer Studio. Even more comfortable now that I got a couch there. See you there.
Without a moment to lose, this is Clam playing Electrotherapy on Tiger Claw Radio.
Afternoon, Jolly Chaps. It is Monday, 3:41 in the afternoon. It's a nice sunny day outside, and I'm driving home. It's cleared up a lot from this morning. It was nice and wet this morning, and now it's great. Okay, so I got, let's see. All right, turn back the clock a couple of days. Steam, which I haven't been paying attention to a whole lot because of my interest in consoles. Again, retro consoles. The rekindling, as I'm coming to know it as. Raiden 5 has been released. And man, this looks hot. Man, it looks hot. I like shmups. I like the shmups. I gotta say, Steam has been the greatest platform for shmups today. The greatest platform. Now that they have, I would say, until this game was released, I was saying Dodonpachi was the number one shmup on Steam. It was a little pricey at $30, but it was number one. I mean, I bought that, and I never for a second regretted it. I mean, that's an awesome game. Especially if you got an arcade stick. But this one, Raiden 5, I've dug every time I sit down to play a game on Steam, specifically shmups. I have a lot of shmups. I like them. I'm into them right now more so because Shmuptober is going on. Kaiser's putting out like a really good shmup review every single day. That's got me in shmup fever. But every single time I sit down, you know what? I'm going to cruise my shmup catalog. I'll play a little of this, I'll play a little of that. Every time I end up playing Raiden 3 because I want to beat his high score. Hang on one second. We good? Yeah, we good. So it's always Raiden 3. That is a series I've enjoyed. I have Raiden 4 Overkill, Raiden 4 Overkill, I believe it's called. I got that, but hold on. I've got Raiden 4, but that's not what I sit down to play. I play Raiden 3. Now, Dumays, if you're out there, if you've got Raiden 4, kick it into high gear. Set a benchmark for me to try and beat. That'll get me to play that game. Anyway, I'm sliding off track. So this game looks good. All right? I'm taking a look. It's a little steep. $30 on sale. I think it's like $34 regular price. Making it the most expensive shmup on Steam. The most expensive. It looks good, man. I'm thinking about getting it. And I was sitting at work today, and I looked at my phone, and I get an email when games go on sale from my wish list. So there's certain days where that email always comes because I have a really large wish list. And today being Monday they always roll out. There's X number of games on sale this week, right? And then Tuesday they have Midweek Madness. Thursday they roll out whatever for the weekend. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Those are usually the days I get the email. The Monday email rolls in, and it must be like Shmup Week. I haven't had a chance to look at the Steam main page. Must be Shmup Week over there, because all shmups. It's like 4 or 5 shmups on my wish list have all been put on sale. Ugh. I see. I was gonna wait for Raiden 5 until after October came and left, because we've got this major Steam sales coming, right? Halloween Steam sale is going to be here at the end of the month. Then in another month we've got the Thanksgiving sale, and then in another month we've got the Christmas sale. So this is a big time for sales, making it a very bad time to buy a game at full or slight discounted price. This is the time of year where you're holding off for the big deals, because I know they're coming. But now I really got to go through this list of shmups that are on sale and see what's what. Because the last couple of major year-end sales on Steam The sales aren't quite what they used to be. Hold on a second, got a big cough coming. You used to be able to, you could take it to the bank that the game you wanted was going to be on sale during the end of year sales, during the winter and summer sales. You could take it to the bank. Last couple of years, that's not the case. Now, don't get me wrong, the sales are really good. There's always a lot of stuff. But if the game you want, in particular, goes on sale for big money just before the sale and you miss it, you might not get it back when this, all right, I'll give you for instance. Geez, I can't give you for instance because I don't have the names and prices. These were lower card or lower tier price point shmups. You're looking at $10 regular price, $6, $7 in a couple of instances. So you have a $6 or $7 game that drops down to $2.99, $3. If I decide against buying that now, then the ship might have sailed. So here's what I'm thinking. I don't want to blow a bunch of money on Steam right now, because I'm looking at stuff for the Master System. But I think I can afford a $3 shmup. I'll have to sit down with Shmuptober and catch up. There's like a couple of videos over the last couple days I haven't watched yet. But yeah, it's shmup time on Steam, guys. That's pretty neat. What else we got? There's one other thing I scratched down today. Yes. My final Wii purchases. So the Wii has released an announcement, just for a quick review, that they are closing the Wii shop, the WiiWare and the Wii Virtual Console. Now, this is not to be confused with the online capabilities of the Wii, which have been closed for over a year now or more. But you could no longer play online, but you could still go and buy games if you wanted. Or more importantly, you could download the games that you bought already. That is closing. Now, they've given us a big window. It's closing in about a year, but it's closing. That time is rapidly approaching. So, I had $3 stranded on the Wii because there's not a lot you can get with $3. I've just had it sitting there for a couple of years now. So I got on there and I purchased a Bubble Bobble expansion, thinking this was going to be my last purchase. Bubble Bobble on the Wii, on WiiWare, has 2 expansions on it that are like expert level packs. I talked about this before, it's just review. So I got expert expansion pack number 1, and I thought, all right, we're good to go. I played all the way through that with my son. It was great. And I was talking to him a couple nights ago, and he was like, yeah, man, I want to get the second expansion. We had a lot of fun with the first one. I want to get that second one. All right, so now we have a problem. Second expansion is $2. The Wii wants you to buy the points in $10 increments. So I said, all right, we can buy it. You got to buy it with your allowance. And you can't just buy the $2. You got to buy the whole increment and get the points. All right, so that's tough for him because he's really little. He's only 8. Turns 8 in a couple weeks. He's only 7 right now. So that's a good chunk of change for him. So I said, all right, I want you to be able to get your expansion pack. That's the thing you want, and I had a great time playing it with him. So I want him to have it too. So let me go on the Wii. After saying I was never going to buy anything new from Nintendo again, let me just look and see if I can find something else that I can go halvesies on this card. I'm looking for a 500-point item. So I took a look at the Nintendo games, and I took a look at the arcade ROMs, and I took a look at the TurboGrafx 16 games, which I thought about,
but I decided I might like to actually buy a TurboGrafx 16. And that would be the route I'd like to take on those. So I thought, what better timely purchase than to get the Wii version of Phantasy Star, the first game. I want a legitimately obtained copy of that. You know, something that's not a ROM. It's $100 to get the regular game, at least to get it off of eBay. I'll have to keep my eyes peeled elsewhere. And there's no reproduction of it. It's perfect. That game is $5. So tonight, we're going to drop $10 on the Wii Virtual Console, splitting it with my son. He's going to get this $2 expansion pack. I'm going to get Phantasy Star, and then we'll just have to live with a couple of dollars being orphaned. Hang on a second. We'll just have to live with a couple of dollars being orphaned on our Wii account. I don't know. That's I guess the best we can do. So I'll have Phantasy Star, and I'm kind of looking forward to that. I gotta say, the only other way I can think to get Phantasy Star is to go back and buy the Genesis collection for the Xbox 360. That has, I mean, as anybody who's listening to this is probably aware already, that's a Genesis collection, but as an unlockable, they had the original Phantasy Star in its entirety, and it was like a simple unlock too, if I understand correctly. I still want to get that one day, but as little as I play the Wii, I play the Xbox 360 even less. I mean, I do have it hooked up, but it's just not where my time's going. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's see, final Wii purchases, and then riding 5, and that's it. That's it, guys. Hang on a second. I'm gonna shut this off as soon as it's safe here. And there we go. Let's go back to the nice, comfortable Panzer Studios.
With all the van casting we got on this episode, I'm in a hurry to get through things. But even in a hurry, I still have to take time to thank the wonderful patrons over at the Tiger Claw Radio Patreon channel. These guys are keeping this show coming back every single week. So what I like to do as a thank you, because I don't offer really any perks, they get the show a little early. And I also like to personally thank these guys. They are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, Six Elf the Fury, and the Cartridge Brothers. Thank you guys so much. I truly hope you feel like you're getting your money's worth, because I'm doing the best I can to do my part and live up to it. Thanks for contributing. Let's get on with the show.
Okay, give me a second here. I gotta figure out how to get the windshield defrosted. It's not frosted, but it's like the condensation is making it so it's hard to see. Give me a second here. Windshield wipers aren't doing it. Spraying it's not doing it. We gotta turn the blower on. How can I run a podcast with this noise? All right, guys, we'll just give it a second. I'll tell you what. I'll pause this just for a bit. We'll see if it clears up. That's pretty good. I can see based on that. Well, hang on a second. We'll raise it up a little bit, and we'll keep the windshield wipers on to deal with the condensation. That's not too bad. It's not the best visibility in the world, but I can see. I can make it to work without getting in an accident. Here's hoping. So let's talk about video games. It is Wednesday morning, early, on my way to work. I put out a video this morning talking about how I'm beginning my quest to collect video games again for the classic consoles. And I mean, the long and short of it is I sat down and I thought about what it is that I wanted. What if, look, you know, I picture myself as a collector 5 years from now with all the things that I was after. What things on my shelf am I proud of? All right, so I drew up a list, and it was a pretty big list. We're talking like 30, 40 items. Anything I could think of that I could single out and say, this is something that I want. The first step was just getting it all written down. Then I was going to prioritize. My idea is I want to have a list that I can show and say, this is my list, and when I get something, I'm going to cross it off. That's the idea. I don't have the time to do the scouring that people do. So I'm going to have to pay a little bit more and do it slowly. But that's all right. I accept that responsibility as the curator of the family collection. That's my part. So now I finally have some space. I have my office at home. I have some space to put all these games. Let's start collecting. So what is going to be on that list? Well, if you look at the prices of video games, they're not what they used to be. Certain ones have gone up, certain ones have gone down. Now, specifically, Super Nintendo is through the roof. One game, I think I might have talked about this on the last Vancast, but just to recap, one game I've always wanted for Super Nintendo is SOS. It used to be $20. I never quite pulled the trigger. I even had bids out on it a couple years back, but it just got like, $21, $22, I'll wait. Well, now it's like $100. And even Spectre. There's an MS-DOS game called Spectre that my dad had years ago. Go to an abandonware site, you'll find it. Spectre, and then there was a sequel called Spectre VR, which is basically the same game. They just remade it. Well, they made a Super Nintendo port of it called Spectre, and it's a Battlezone clone, little tank game. I like it. I mean, it's primitive, but I played it when I was young and impressionable, so I like it. And the Super Nintendo version is even more primitive. Well, that used to be a $5 game. Now it's a $10 game. So looking at SOS and Spectre being an expensive and a cheap game for the Super Nintendo, it really illustrates what's happened to the prices. So that's Super Nintendo. Then we have the PS1. PS1 is going through something different right now. Rare games are becoming available on PSN more and more as time goes on, and prices are starting to drop. So one game I've had on my get list, in the back of my head forever, is the original Suikoden. This is a game I ended up getting on PSN back when I was hot for the PS3. Recorded a bunch of footage. I mean, you guys know the story. I was working on a video for Suikoden for a long time, and it just kind of petered out. But that's a game I've always wanted to own. And it used to be about $100, and now it's dropped to about $33. So Suikoden is now like an attainable title. Suikoden 2 is still crazy expensive because there's so few of them out there. But actually, to be fair, Suikoden 2 is expensive, but it has dropped also. It used to be like $200. Now it's like $130 or something. So it's still, more expensive than I would want to pay, but I think it's fair to say the price has dropped. Another great example of a game that has become attainable again is Dragon Warrior 7. I think the last game in the Dragon Quest series to ever carry the Dragon Warrior title, the Americanized title, for PS1. That game used to be upwards of $100. I don't think it ever hit 100. I think it was like 70 or something. And now it's down to, last I checked, that you could get a copy for $33, $34. So that game came out and I knew I wanted it. When it hit the shelves, I was like, Dragon Warrior 7, baby. People are talking about 180 plus hours, something like that. It's one of these things about the modern Dragon Quest games is they take a lot of time. So it's like, yeah, baby, I'm in. I want that. This is a PS1 RPG. The very end of the grand renaissance of the RPG was the PS1 era. And I didn't get it at launch. I went down to GameStop one day many years ago, and they had Dragon Warrior 7 pre-owned, but it was like it was a good copy, used for $30. And I didn't have $30 in my pocket. I didn't have $30 to spend, period. And I was like, man, I want that game. I was close, but didn't quite have the money. I came back the next week with the money in my pocket, and it was gone. Not only was it gone from the market. That was the end of that game being available. The only way to get it after that was when I started having the means to do eBay. That's when it started turning up for a crazy amount of money. So I blew my shot at getting that game just because I didn't have the money in my pocket at that time. I mean, that was a time when I was really struggling, and I had to focus on, it was pretty much work and food and rent, and that was it. But now, thanks to the PSN, I mean, that's a game that's dropped and become attainable again, and I'm actually really excited to get my hands on it. It's funny that now it's not the money. I mean, I still have to be careful how I spend. I have an allowance budget now so that I don't eat into my family's funds. But it's not the money anymore. Now it's the time. I'm so strapped for time. I could get that game and it'd be like, I don't know, I have no idea when I would play it. But you know what? I want it anyway. I don't finish RPGs. I don't. I play them, and then when I'm done, or when I feel like it's time to move on, I move on. I say that's okay, but it's got to be okay, because that's the way I do things. That's the way I've always done things. I think I would be all right with it being like that. Look, I would just buy the game. I know it's 180 hours. I'm not going to put 180 hours into it because I don't have that kind of time. I would just put it in the machine, play it, and experience as much of the story as I can while I can stay focused, and then move on. I've got Dragon Warrior 8 for the PS2. I guess that's when they switched over. So it's Dragon Quest 8. That's an amazing game. That is an amazing game. I've got Dragon Quest 8, and somewhere on the internet I got my hands on the soundtrack for Dragon Quest 8. Because that game, they moved from MIDI arrangements to full orchestrated music. And my wife, although she's never even slightly been interested in any of those kinds of games, she dug the soundtrack. We used to play the soundtrack to Dragon Quest 8 in the car, on the way to vacation. So she doesn't know a thing about Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest, but she knows that overture. Very recognizable. So that's one I'm excited to get. PS1 in general, there's a lot of titles there I really want to get my hands on. I tell this story all the time. I had a big box of PS1 games probably when I was early 20s, 22, 23. There was my life's collection of PS1 games. This was a box that had a lot of RPGs. It had I gotta add Disruptor to my list. Disruptor for the PS1. I love that game. Disruptor. I had the long box Resident Evil 1. So the first generation Resident Evil game. Now, that's not a super rare title. And that was a game that became more playable when Director's Cuts came out. But that was a game that meant something to me. It meant something to me because it was the beginning of the PS1 era. Those long box games I felt were really cool. I had a bunch of those long box games too. I had a hockey game in long box, and I can't remember what else I had, but Resident Evil 1 long box is a game I want to get a hold of again. What else? I mean, I have this big list that's all written up back at the house, and a lot of it was PS1, but not all of it. I wrote Commodore 64 on there, not any particular game, but just to acquire a Commodore 64. And that's another thing. The items on my get list are anything that I want to have, right? If I write it down and I go to sleep and wake up the next morning and I look at that and that's that's something I want, then it should be on that list. So I'll have, one of the first things I wrote was Metal Gear Solid VR missions for PS1. I wrote that, and I also wrote a Commodore 64. So you're talking about a $7 item and a $200 item. And they both need to be on that list because that's what I'm after. So just to give you an idea of the range of the stuff. And there's a lot of PS1 stuff. Tobal #1 is another game I used to own that I loved, that I want to have again. That's a great fighting game. It has a great adventure mode in it. Very underrated. Most people know Tobal 1 because it came with a demo disc for the up-and-coming Final Fantasy VII. So that'll give you a good idea of where that game was in history. That's what made it desirable. It's also gone down. It's like $25 now. Honestly, I don't care about the demo disc. I just think that's an amazing game and I want to own it. Guys, that's another game I'd love to have, especially since I have an arcade stick for the PS1. Guys was a Squaresoft shmup game that was really attractive, good looking, and played well. I know it because we had a demo disc that had like the first level of it available. Tomba is another great series. Tomba 1 and Tomba 2 killed because they weren't 3D. The last of the 2D sprite-based games on the PS1. Really the end of that era. Tomba was a great game. I didn't play it much. My older brother played it. But I remember sitting and watching him play. And it was good. I'd like to own that now. I've been bidding on a bunch of stuff last night and the night before. I sealed the deal on a couple Sega Master System games. They're paid and weighed. They're on the way in the mail. So we're looking at the first one is I got it because it has Hang On it. The motorcycle game, but it's like a double car. So it's Hang On and like some other game, Safari Hunt or something like that. I got it because it has Hang On. I got that, and I got a game called Great Baseball, which I bought because that's like, if you look around on the internet, that seems to be the crowning title as the cheapest game. That is the single game that is most common and least expensive for the Sega Master System. Great Baseball. So I ordered I found a copy of it in the box, in those trademarked Sega clamshell cases, for less than $5. I was like, yeah, okay. Throw that in there, bro. Play some Great Baseball. I looked it up on the internet just to see what it looks like. And it looks like, I don't know, some of these Master System games, when you hear, okay, this is an 8-bit system, right? The competitor to the Nintendo, the little-known, underappreciated competitor to the Nintendo. It's easy to compare these games to NES games. But when I look at them, they remind me more of like the higher-end MS-DOS games. Great Baseball looks like a really good MS-DOS baseball game, or a really terrible NES baseball game. But I'm an MS-DOS guy, and that's what makes some of these games easier for me to enjoy than most people. The next games I'm going to target were... I also put bids out on Crash Bandicoot Warped. But it was a disc-only copy, a greatest hits disc-only copy, it had a case, but there was no instruction manual, so to me that's just as good as a disc-only copy, and the case was cracked. So I just wanted it to play the game. It got up to about $4, and then I got outbid in the middle of the night after I went to sleep, so it happens. I woke up this morning to see that it had come and gone. I'm okay with that, though. Next games on my list, I'm still in the Sega Master System. I'm going to collect some of the more attainable titles before I move on. Double Dragon for the Sega Master System is about $10. I'm going to get a hold of that. I'm probably going to order that at the end of the week. Outrun is also very attainable. It's a little less than $10. Probably like $8, depending. And there was one more. Shoot. I know that I'm the only one who cares about any of this, but one oddity about the Sega Master System is Master System had a chess game. There's a game called Sega Chess that came out for the Master System, and there was no chess game to ever come out for the Sega Genesis. I like chess video games. I don't know what it is. I have a bunch of them. I collect the Chess Master games. This is one that I want to have. It's oddly expensive. I mean, it's not super expensive. You're looking at like $10, $8, $9, something like that. For a chess game, that's a lot. Chess games on consoles, they tend to be the ones that are, bargain bin kind of games. There's a couple notable exceptions. Fritz Chess is like a long-running computer chess program. Not really a video game, but like a chess analytical tool. Well, there was a Fritz Chess that came out on the Wii, and that's like $40 now. I don't know what it is, but the last time I looked at it, it was $40. To be fair, that was a couple years ago. It's probably going up. So that's like, hang on a second. When it comes to chess video games, that'd be like the grail, I guess, would be Fritz Chess for the Wii. Fritz Chess for the Wii or Chess Master for the Xbox Live, because they pulled that from the market. Or maybe Chess Master Grandmaster Edition for Steam, because that was also pulled from the market. I don't know. There's a few attainable ones. There's a few really nice ones. But that's chess. You know, you have to be a chess head to like those. That's got very little to do with video games, I would say. So yeah, that's it. Where I'm at right now, Sega Master System. Sega Master System, and there's a few cheap PS1 games I want to get my hands on. Back in my middle school days, so probably 97, 98, maybe even as far back as 96. In those days, I was into the extreme sports video games. I liked those a lot. Skateboarding, snowboarding, those kinds of things. I had a few favorite ones in that box of PS1 games that got sold that I want to get my hands on again. And those are super cheap. Specifically, 2 Extreme was a classic. Had it on a demo disc back in the day. And then I actually got my hands on the real game, and I loved it. Oddly enough, though, while we're on the subject of demo discs, that particular demo disc, it had, like, when you played 2 Extreme on it, it had some music in the background and stuff that didn't appear in the actual game once I bought it. It was very strange. I don't know. I'm not a big proponent of demo discs. I mean, they were what they were, and it's cool to see them, but the particular ones that I owned, I would like to get again. That is one. Another one was the demo disc that had the demo for the up-and-coming Metal Gear Solid, which was, I would imagine this would be a very expensive disc to have now, because that demo of Metal Gear Solid, it had it had like the basement thing where you first come in at the very beginning of the game. It had that, and it also had outside of the base in the snowy area. Those 2 screens were the only screens you could play. All of the voice samples were in Japanese. There was no American voiceovers yet, and and some of the later items were moved to appear in the demo. For example, the thermal goggles could be picked up right outside in the snowy area. Those things, I thought, I don't know, set it apart. And I played that demo like a million billion times. I played it a lot. I was really excited for Metal Gear Solid when it came out. So that's it. The way I'm looking at this, at all these games, it's tough because you look at the prices of games and then that seems like the best metric to determine what you're going to collect for. But what I've come up with is the games you're collecting have to coincide with the games you're actually spending your time on. Because if you're collecting games and you're not playing any of the games you're collecting, there's a disconnect and you're not going to be able to keep that up. You know, eventually you're going to look at yourself and be like, I'm wasting my time and my money, right? So I have to strike that balance. I want to collect for the Atari 2600, but right now my 2600 is on ice. I don't have a way to play it. So there's not a whole lot I can do yet. I mean, I could buy Atari 2600 games, but they're just going to go in the drawer and not get played. I get an Atari 2600 game every year at MagFest, 1 or 2. And I looked in my Atari drawer last night, and I was seeing games that I didn't even know I had. So I got to get a CRT in my office. I don't know where it'll go yet, but I have to get a CRT, or I have to figure out how to turn that TV to channel 3 so they can pick up the Atari. Because right now it ain't doing nothing, brother. Or maybe I can just like get an old VCR and hook it up through through those RGB cables. And then the VCR will be able to pick up the Atari. I don't know. I'll have to look at some junction boxes and see what kind of magic I can work. Because I'm sure I can buy the cables or adapters to make everything work. I just, need to get some stuff. So that's it. I don't know. It seems like a lot in a short amount of time. Because these console games, I've had to kind of push them to the back of my mind. There hasn't been time. There hasn't been room. There hasn't been the money. There hasn't been this. There hasn't been anything. There hasn't been any way to make this work for many, many years. And now I'm just like starting to realize that this can happen for me again. At least on a small scale. I'm not going to be getting these huge. I spent $120 and look at the giant box of games I got. I'm not going to be in that place, but I can go out and set my sights on the most desired items and actually make that happen. I can do that now. One game I've wanted for many years. There's a few repros I've had on my sites, but I didn't think they were possible until lately. Rockman Exile is a game I've always wanted. I played it in emulation enough to know the game pretty well. So even though it's like, why would you play that on a system? You need save and load states. I was pretty good at it. I could make it work. I want to get that in a cart. Now I can make that happen. The Legend of Zelda Outlands. A great ROM hack. Or rather, I like to use the term total conversion because this is a professional game. This is a professional version, sequel to The Legend of Zelda for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Doesn't matter that it didn't come from Nintendo. It doesn't matter that it's unlicensed. Doesn't matter that it's a ROM hack. You play Zelda Outlands. This is a professional game. Get Zelda Outlands. Get it now. Get it today. Go get a copy of the ROM. Get the ROM hack, which is free, and play it. I want that on a cart. I went to AliExpress. They sell it in a gold cart. It's not cheap. It's like $21. I want that in a gold cartridge. That's what I want. Now I can make it happen because I am the curator of the family collection, and I need to build. I need to build while I have the time. Well, all right. Wow, 24 minutes and 33 seconds. This is probably the longest Vancast I've done ever. Maybe not ever, but at least since the reboot. And I'm like a block from the office now. So that's it. Thanks for hanging out with me while I drove to work this morning. Let's shoot it back to the so comfortable Panzer Studios. Even more comfortable now than ever. Now that I've spent time picking it up and turning it into my lair. Let's go back there now.
You know what, guys? I think we're headed towards the longest regular series episode of TCR in history. And you know what? I think I'm okay with that. Let's jump right into the next Vancast because I don't think I think we're not going to get to it otherwise.
Okay, Thursday morning. I did it again. It's like the third day of the season where the mornings are starting to get cold. Like not just, it's a little chilly, but like this is cold. And I forgot a jacket. Because it's like just starting the season where you need to start wearing a coat and taking care of yourself. Let's see, I need to get something on the windshield. Windshield fogs up. Oh boy. I think I might need to start letting the car sit for a minute so that the windshield clears up before I start driving. Alright. I hate to do it because I know it's going to make the audio come out terrible, but I got to blast it like that. It's like what I have to do to be safe. Alright. That's great radio, isn't it? It's great radio. Great podcasting. Great pizzity pop podcast. I'm going to do another one. I'm going to do another Vancast. It seems excessive. I had a pretty... I got a lot done early in the week. it's the collecting, man. There's more to talk about when it comes to collecting than there was when it was just Steam games. And I tell you what, the second I turned to console collecting, Steam started testing my mettle. There was a shmup sale. It wasn't actually a shmup sale. It was like one of those publisher sales, but it was a bunch of shmups all at once. And thankfully, I just happened to have $10 sitting in my account, so I was able to partake of the sale without hurting my retro collecting budget. So I got a few like low-end shmups that are always fun. But Danmaku Unlimited 3 is on sale. It's $5 right now, and that's kind of tough to pass up because I had Danmaku Unlimited 2 forever, and like it was unplayed, and I finally played it for the first time like maybe a month ago, and it was a really good bullet hell game, like a really good one. An attractive bullet hell game where you could upgrade your ship, which is rare. Most of those games are just like skill alone without upgrades. So it made it like attainable, like bullet hell for beginners, serious bullet hell, but accessible for new players. So that made that a really good game for me. And the sequel is out now. It just came out. I think regular price is $10, and the current sale price is $5. So I don't know. I'll really have to check my finances out, and I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll just like play Danmaku 2 a bunch and just cope with it. I don't know. I know that the Halloween sale is just like a couple weeks away, and that's going to be tough. But we'll see. I think my next milestone in collecting is I have to set some simple, attainable, realistic goals for collecting. Because otherwise what happens is, and I've spent some time just chilling out on the couch, looking at like eBay, just cruising around like before sleep, that kind of thing. Not even necessarily looking for deals, not even necessarily looking for like, oh, this is like somebody's unloading this for cheap, let me snap it up. Just looking to see what things cost and what's attainable and what isn't. Has been good. I mean, because the market in video games has changed a lot. It has. I think I'm going to get some of those old PS1 Extreme Sports games again. I used to love those games. They're cheap now, and I can play them with my children because they're not like super violent or anything. I can get a copy of 2 Extreme for $4 and a copy of Cool Borders 3 for like $3.50. Those were both games that I really, really liked back in the day. Man, Cool Borders 3 was a great game. That was one of the few games where we played a demo on a demo disc, and then we got our hands on the real game. One Christmas, I asked for Cool Borders 2, and they gave me Cool Borders 3. My mom and my older brother, which I loved. I was like, this is not exactly the game I wanted, but I dug it. And the very next year, I was like, I loved what you got me. Now I would like Cool Borders 2. And they responded by getting me Cool Borders 4, which didn't get much play. That said, I want to get my game Cool Borders 3, which I spent a lot of time on, and then maybe also go back and get that second game that I wanted a couple years in a row and never really got. But those games around that time, snowboarding, skateboarding, all that stuff, those were a dime a dozen. And like setting aside the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise, there were a million other games like that. I remember the Street Skater games. You remember Street Skater? That came out before Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, so that was actually considered the first 3D open world skating game, although it wasn't exactly open world. And then they did it again. Street Skater 2 came out, and the claim to fame for Street Skater 2 was it was the first open world 3D skating game. skateboarding game that had a level editor. So they had to push that to market before Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 came out. Those are both good games. They were inferior to the Tony Hawk series by a long shot, but they were great games. And one thing that they did similar to Tony Hawk was they acquired licenses for actual music rather than, getting a generic, some sort of generic soundtrack. Hang on a second, let me back up the heat. I can see out of the windshield now, so there's no reason to be cooking in the car. So those are some games I'd like to get, but I haven't drawn up a priority list, which is something I want to do. I've got my Master System games coming in the mail, and so far that's about where it stops. Last night I finally did the thing I was talking about where I dropped $10 on the Wii and I made my final Wii purchases. My son got his expert level pack for Bubble Bobble, and I got my copy of the original Phantasy Star on the Wii, on the Virtual Console. That leaves $4 unclaimed in our account, but that's not the worst thing in the world, because there are certain games that I know there's games that go for $4 on the WiiWare or the Virtual Console. We'll find something for $4 to get that money out of the account. But this was one of the things I didn't like about the Wii. I talked a lot, like when I talk about things I didn't like about the Wii, normally I cite Virtual Console prices and WiiWare prices, but it wasn't just the prices. It was the fact that they set the prices in these oddball denominations, and they forced you to buy the points at $10 and $20 intervals. For example, my son played the demo for Pokemon Rumble last night for the first time. Pokemon Rumble was a game that was like it was like a brawler, but with Pokemon, and the Pokemon had little keys in the back of them, so they would wind up. The idea was it was supposed to be toys that were fighting each other, but it was basically like a 3D brawler. And I have the demo that they released a long time ago. It was one of these games where they released the demo for it, but the demo was only available for a short time. So even if the game was not your thing, most people just grabbed the demo and put it away on an SD card. I did that for a few games. And so he played that, and he's like, "Dad, I really like this game. This is really good, man." Pokemon Rumble is a $15 game, which is, if you're getting a game that you're really going to get some hours out of, a fair price for a fully fledged piece of software. But I was explaining to him, even though it's $15, we're going to have to buy a $20 card. So it's not really $15, is it? It's $20. And that was the problem with the Wii. I think they set the prices of Virtual Console games on purpose to make that happen. If you'll allow me to put my tinfoil hat on, if you're just buying NES games, they were $5 a piece. You had to pay $10, which sucked. But, that would get you 2 games. So, and then you would zero out your account, which was fine. It sucked, but, it was doable. The second you threw Super Nintendo into the mix, or I believe Sega Genesis games were priced the same way, those were $8. So you would have to pay $10 for a game, and you would have $2 left sitting in your account. A denomination of cash that was not enough to buy any one thing in the Virtual Console or WiiWare library. And that's what sucked. I think that was engineered by those jerks. I don't know. That's the Wii for you. What are you going to do? At least that was something. There's a lot of things I don't like about modern video gaming practices, but that's one thing that they at least fixed. Is it's now standard. You can just get. Even for the PS3, I don't have a PS4, but I can log onto the PSN if I wanted to, and I could download, a $3 game and pay $3 for that $3 game, and that's it. I haven't done that ever, even once, because of the Sony leak that happened. How do you put it? I don't know if this event has like a name that's commonly referred to, but there was that hack where PSN was hacked and everything went down. It was like 5 years ago. PSN went down for weeks, and a bunch of credit cards were compromised, and Sony waited like a long time to tell everyone. After that happened, I decided to not trust Sony with my credit card information. So, through the lifespan of the PS3 that we owned, I only ever bought games by buying a card with cash, or not with cash, but buying a card from the stores, bringing it home and loading my machine up with points that way. All right, I'm sliding off track here. I was going to talk about goal setting in terms of game collecting. This is my next thing to sort out. When Hemrock sent me the Famiclone, I had been buying games for a while. So I was sitting on a box of maybe 20 Famicom games. So when I hooked up the Famiclone, and I need to make videos for all this. The Famiclone is something that deserves videos. I was able to explore the system with a nice, modest library of games. My first goal is to get a similar situation with the Sega Master System. The Master System games are more expensive than Famicom games, so I won't be able to amass quite as much of a library. I mean, I could get a Famicom game. There's one great dealer of Famicom games that combines shipping, so you can get them for $2 a piece, the lower end titles. $1 shipping, and then $1 for the game. Very fair price. Master System, not quite so much. There's some very attainable titles, but they're kind of scattered all over the place. I don't see one solid dealer of Master System games, so you're looking at about $5 a pop for the very low end games, and then the mid card attainable titles get up to about 10, and then the really nice games are about 30, and then there's Phantasy Star for 100, and that's pretty much how they're priced out. Like Sonic the Hedgehog for the Master System, there was a couple Sonic the Hedgehog games. I thought it might be cool to own those, but Sonic the Hedgehog is $30, Sonic 2 is $30. I don't know what Sonic Chaos costs. That could be a lot of money. So right now for the Sega Master System, I'm after Outrun, I'm after Altered Beast, I'm after Double Dragon. Those are the 3 games that I want. Outrun, Altered Beast, Double Dragon. Those are about $10 a piece. And we'll see. I think when I get those 3, I think that should be enough for me to really dig in. Because the only dig in game I have right now, the only game I can play for a long period of time is Rampage. So I need a couple more to add to the Master System. Where are we at now? 14 minutes, man. It's going to be a long podcast this week. I guess we'll call that it. I don't know. I feel like there's more to talk about, but I'm afraid it's going to be too rambly. Like I played Dead or Alive 5 on Steam this morning, and I had a really good time. So I feel like I could go down that rabbit hole, but that's not something I really want to do. Especially when it comes to Dead or Alive 5. Jeez Louise, I've never seen a bigger DLC trap in my life. People make fun of Street Fighter 5 for having tons of DLC, and where it's just costumes and stuff. Dead or Alive 5 is worse. You're talking $30 for 5 costumes, or something like that. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen in a video game. Worse even than The Sims. The Sims is really bad with DLC, but Dead or Alive 5 is worse. Alright guys, let's go back to the nice comfortable Panzer Studios. We're going to wrap these vancasts up, because I'm making TCR go way too long this week.
We're back in the comfortable Panzer Studios, and we're moving right along because there's no other way to get to it. The very last Vancast for the week. I promise you're listening to Tiger Claw Radio.
Jeez Louise, I'm dying here. Too much, guys. Thursday afternoon, and I'm on my way home from work. This is killing me. I don't think I've been this fired up about video games in years. All right? Watching this Bithead 1000 guy. It's doing bad things to me. It really is. I'm sitting around looking on eBay, just, on my phone, which the eBay app on the phone is it's killing me. It's killing me. I gotta have like $40 pending right now. Now, most of that is lowball bids, so I know it's like I'm not gonna be spending, anywhere near that much. But you gotta be careful because it's a dangerous game when you're making bids, and it's like, oh, I know these aren't gonna go anywhere, because one day they all do at the same time and you're out of luck. So you can't be making bids that you don't have the green to back up. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm at now. If I have to stop bidding for a few days because I've got the funds to back everything now, but too much more and I don't. But a lot of PS1 games that I got when I still had my big PS1 collection and I had to let go, that I'd forgotten about. I mentioned Disruptor on a previous Vancast. That's a game that was never super valuable, but it was a console FPS. It was the first game from Insomniac Games, which went on to do, other things. And I missed it. Disruptor was the only real game I knew from that company. And it was a game I loved. It was a Doom clone. In the days when if you made an FPS, you were making a Doom clone. And they did it very well. They did it well with these terrible, hilarious FMV intros for every level. So it was like you were playing a 90s era UPN sci-fi show, which I enjoyed very much. Even if you don't care about first-person shooters, look up Disruptor on YouTube and watch some of the full motion video cutscenes, because they were gold. And it was never a valuable game, but if you look it up now, it's like $30. It used to be like, between 6 and 10 or something, I don't know. But it's most PlayStation games have gone down in price. That has gone up. Disruptor another game I had, I think I mentioned this already, but the long box Resident Evil. That was one that was important to me. Even back when I found it, I felt like I was getting a deal, because I bought it for $12 at a GameStop. And even then, I was like, I don't know where this came from, but it's going home with me. Because it was old then, and I wish I had that still. Another game that I had for the PlayStation that just came back to me today in my head was a game called Blaster Master Blasting Again, which was not a beloved game, but it's one that I dearly miss. It clearly a sign of the PlayStation era push for 3D graphics. They took Blaster Master, the Blaster Master intellectual property, and they put it in that late 90s 3D style game. And it was not beloved. There were a lot of problems with it, but I liked it. I really liked it. And I got a copy of that game for a very affordable price, just a couple of dollars, many, many years ago. And I remember getting that game towards the end when I had to sell my PlayStation collection for grocery money. And now that my family is settled and I'm back on my feet, I remember Blaster Master Blasting Again, and I want to get it back. So you better believe that's going on the wish list. That's going on, not the wish list, excuse me. A wish is a pie in the sky. This is going on my list of goals, okay? I will again own Blaster Master Blasting Again. And I will again go blasting in Blaster Master Blast. All those words got stuck in my throat. All right, hang on a second. And so there's that. And it's Thursday afternoon today. I've got work tomorrow. And then Saturday morning, I've been watching Bithead 1000 every day, watching his back catalog. Saturday morning, I'm doing my very first garage sale run. It's fall. It might be too late. I don't know how this works because I know once it gets cold, they go away. But I think there's still. It's fall, but I think we still got. Maybe there's a couple out there. I don't know. I'm hoping I can get in my car and work it out with my family that I can go out just for like an hour and a half, couple hours in the local area, not too far away. I'm hoping I can get a couple of garage sales and maybe find a little something before they all go away for the year. That's my hope. And I'm going to give that my very best shot this Saturday morning. I'm going to talk about hopefully my plan is to make a video about this when I get home. So if you're watching the YouTube channel, you probably heard all this already. But that's where I'm at now. I'm fired up. Because I feel like this is the faucet has been off for a very long time, and I've had not just great games that have slipped through my fingers, but things I've had to get rid of for one reason or another. Space, getting rid of having a complete in-box version of D-Zone, the unofficial expansion pack for Doom 2, the big box game, and have to get rid of the box because of space issues, because I lived in a small, crappy apartment with my wife trying to build our family. And now I'm at a place where I can get those things back. I'm fired up, man. I can feel it in my teeth. Not just to get the games again, but get the games and enjoy them with my children. Right? That's a big thing too, because my son turns 8 in a few weeks, and he's, I don't know if he'd be playing Doom, but to play some of those little games again, I'm in a good place. They're fun again, and not in a depressing way. Not in I'm destroying myself by spending everything on video games, all my time and energy. It's a good thing. It's a good place. All right. I've done more van casting than I should for 1 week. So let's go back. For the last time this week, I promise. Let's go back to the comfortable Panzer Studios.
How about now? The needles were jumping a second ago. Are we okay? It looks like it's good. Okay, so let's do the fail bag, guys. It's the biggest fail bag on the longest regular series episode of Tiger Claw Radio ever. Let's go back 2 episodes ago to TigerClawTV.com, where Bradley writes, "What's up, CF? I felt compelled to write in. Bithead 1000 is the greatest YouTube channel in the history of civilization. I've been caught up for a year now, and I'm thinking about starting over. Not to be a spoiler, but he's now going for a complete NES collection. The stories that guy tells are so nostalgic. I'm with you in getting out my consoles and dusting them off, and getting the collection back up. After all, that's why we do it, right? To show off. It's half the fun. Always keep your head up and stay smiling. Tecmo Balls. P.S. You have to play Friday the 13th. I've been hooked for months, and they just added a new map. Oh man, I want to play Friday the 13th. I want to play it. I got a question for you, since you have it and you're playing it. Assuming you're still listening this far into TCR. When you look at the reviews on Steam, there's a lot of talk about griefing in that game, and the way they do it is the players try to help out Jason. Do you run into that a lot? And I also hear about people being banned for no reason. Like one player tries to help out Jason, so you try to get around that player or something, and you get banned. I don't know. If you're still playing it, I assume that hasn't happened to you, but that's one of the things that stopped me from saving up the money and getting it. I want to play it, but I gotta be honest. Now that I'm collecting again, I have set goals. I just made a video and posted it about the games I'm saving up for. Oh, by the way, if you didn't watch the video, they are Tiny Tank, Altered Beast, and Double Dragon for Sega Master System. Tiny Tank PS1, and then the 2 Sega Master System games. So yeah, I would love to get it. I'm gonna let it hang out a little while longer though. The end of the year sales on Steam are coming up. I got to deal with those as well. So I think early next year, I'll start looking at it if it's still around. if people are still playing it. But that's cool, man. It's good to know that it's as good as I thought it'd be. All right, so let's go back to that's the last episode on TigerClawTV.com. Durab writes, Bithead 1000 is pretty funny for sure. He embodies the golden age of gaming vids in many ways. I liked your friend's Halo story. Seemed like good times. Yeah, it's better in many ways to be pretty straight edge. I really just drink from the time to time. Anyways, thanks for sharing. Also, Coke is your drink in the Mondo Roundverse. Thank you, Death Adder, for reminding me of that term. That and coffee. Swig for the working man. Hang on one second. Let's see if I have any more in my mug. Just a tiny bit. I'll drink to that. I may get into repro carts one day. So far, I'll stick with emulation and the few systems I have. However, EverDrive seemed like a cool idea, since you get to play the games in the hardware, even if they have a high price. I'll never pay, for example, for Earthbound, since it's too expensive, but I enjoyed playing it. It's cool that you got some enjoyment out of your Master System, even if your son didn't. Gotta check out Bonanza Bros myself. I have known about it, but I don't remember playing it. Contra Hardcore is pretty cool. It's basically like Contra 3 for the SNES. But the characters that you can play, the characters you can play have different weapons. It's still very hard though. Go figure, right? I gotta agree with using a Moga controller on my smartphone. It's pretty much my handheld. It got me through the clinic for sure, and it looks pretty cool. I don't feel the need to get a handheld from Nintendo or Sony. Question of the Beast. If you could make your own arcade, what games would you have in there? Not just gaming arcades, also pinball. What would the theme be? Keep on trucking. All right, you got some good questions in here. Let's start with the arcade thing. So when I started college, before my kids were born, my wife and I were talking about, goals for what we wanted in a house. I wanted an arcade machine, a space for an arcade machine, which meant, maybe a basement, maybe a quote-unquote man cave, even though I hate that phrase. So I've put some thought into this, and for many years it was a Neo Geo MVS. It was just something I wanted. You could get one back in those days for about $300, and then you could just save up and buy the carts, and then you would have swappable carts and a legit arcade experience. So it wasn't a MAME cab. It was, something legit. I looked at MVS carts recently in the last week. The cheapest one used to be $20. Now the cheapest one is $60. I mean, for an arcade game, that's still very, very good, but it ain't what it used to be. They're also not as attainable as they used to be. There used to be online pages and pages of these things, and now not so much. On the other hand, they have like a multi-cart that's like 179 games in one, and it's like $70 and you buy it and you're set. But I mean, if you're going to go that route, you might as well just build a MAME cab. So, I don't know. Part of me wants to just get a MAME cab. A MAME cab with a few controllers, like a nice wide MAME cab, so I can play like with my kids. Pinball I like, but I don't know if I would want to own a pinball machine because maintaining those things takes real expertise. So I would much rather a local establishment have a pinball machine that I can drive to. That would be the best. In the early 90s, there was a pizza place near here that had a pinball table called Comet. And I remember going with my older brother and his friend, and the three of us would pile around this pinball machine and play for hours. We didn't have to own the pinball machine. It was there. We could walk to the store where it was and play it. That's what I would like to have in terms of pinball. Contra Hardcore, yeah, it's pretty dope. It doesn't have the top-down levels that Contra 3 has, because I hated those levels, so I like it for that. What else did you talk about? Master System. Look, I'm still holding out hope that I can get my son to come around on the Master System. It just, he didn't like the games I showed him. So, there's that. I'm gonna get Altered Beast. I'm gonna get Double Dragon. Those are two good places to start. There's other Master System games I've been looking at that are attainable that have some look a little bit more fun. Outrun looks pretty good on the Master System, and that's an attainable game. It's like $10, and you can get a clamshell case. There's an F1 game. It's generically named. I can't think of exactly how it's named, but it's like F1 Grand Prix or something like that. So there's that. I'm looking forward to that. I'm holding out hope. He just didn't like He didn't like Ghostbusters at all. Zero interest in Ghostbusters. I'm confident that if I hooked up a second controller, I could get him into Rampage. I just haven't taken that leap yet. I'm working on getting the room together. I'm going to get our space, and then I'll give it a second shot. I'll get back to you on how that goes. Bonanza Brothers is a good game. I would recommend for you, check it out on the Sega Genesis. Unless you're doing a specific exploration of the Master System like I am, I would go with the Genesis version. But yeah, I enjoyed it on the Master System. I mean, I know you're a capable retro gamer, so I think you might as well. But I believe the Genesis version, pound for pound, is the superior game. Sega fans, correct me if I'm wrong. So I hope that answers your question. Darab, it's always great to hear from you. Thanks for writing in, man. Let's go to the YouTube channel. All right. Let's do Dumay's comments first, because he leaves a bunch of them as he's listening, which is great. It works out great. I think the bottom of the list is the place to start. I can't tell which one's the oldest. He says, you can use a composite mod on MOF1 Genesis, no prob. It's mono sound you get, but the front port has stereo, so no prob anyway. Yeah, you know what? I got that comment from a couple of people, and I ended up ordering the cable. I mean, the video's up. You probably saw it, and it was great. I still have it here. I haven't hooked up the machine yet, but I'm glad you guys said that, because, yeah, I was really wrong about it, and that's one of the reasons why it's worth it to run a YouTube channel, even if your channel is small, because, you know, you get in touch with people. People can help you out just by talking and that sort of thing. So the whole using audio-video cables, these RGB cables for Genesis, this is a prime example of why it's good to run a YouTube channel. Next, he also writes, excuse me, Mega EverDrive does play Master System. I have one. It also, Z plays Game Gear games on a Genesis, and it plays 32X. Have you looked at this, Dumaze? There is a cartridge you can buy. It's this monstrous Genesis cartridge that has like 3 slots on it. And what it does is it allows you to play Master System games, the cartridges and those card slots. You know, some Master System games come in a card, kind of like TurboGrafx 16 games. And it looks dope as hell. I mean, it's definitely a third party. And well, maybe it is a little ugly, but I don't know. It just looks kind of neat, you know. That would be, if I didn't get a Master System from Sendu, that would be my solution for playing Master System games. It's a little expensive. It's like $60, but I mean, especially if you have space issues, which I think most retro collectors are going to hit space issues at some point. I know I am here. I mean, I'm starting with enough space to work with. But if I stick with it and keep getting games, I'm going to bust this place wide open fairly quickly. He also writes, I hope you will check out my room tour featuring all my EverDrives. It's oeri much all of them. I'm sorry, I had to give you a hard time for your typos. I'm going to open this up right here. There's your retro tour. Give me a second. I'm just going to add this to my watch later list. 21 minutes. Good. Good. Got some length to it, but not too long. I'm straight edge 2 between each doobie. Hang in there, buddy. Keep it straight. Keep it straight. Live a long time. Party on Friday night, but keep it straight the rest of the week, if you're going to do that. Phantasy Star 2, I decree, is actually impossible to beat without the guide. The mazes are way too mazy. I would take hundreds and hundreds of hours to find your way through without them. And everywhere looks the same in a dungeon. It was still hard with the map and guide, but it was very fun. You know what, Dumaze? I wonder if that was designed for you to... Well, no. I was going to say I wonder if it was designed for you to make your own map, because some old computer games were like that. And, there's a lot of stories of people making their own maps to get through Metroid. But, no, that came with a guide. I think Swingle told me that it was soft form copy protection, which is weird for a Genesis game. But yeah, hey, now we're in the internet age. Guides are cheap these days. Get yourself an FAQ or a JPEG of a map or something like that. I'm not above it, especially now that I got a tablet. All right, just hell, I'll go see if I can find the PDF of the original guide. There we go. All right, and we have Phantasy Star is Epix. the best one, number 3, is also good. You don't need a map like 2. 3 has cool plot twists and everything. First one I bought, it was $99 Canadian bucks. Ouch, back then. You know, the big plot twist at the end of 3 was spoiled by Happy Console Gamer, but it still looks pretty dope. I bought that one a long time ago. I was like, thankfully, before the prices went through the roof. I don't know what it costs now, but I got on eBay and I got myself a copy of Phantasy Star 3 at least 3 years ago. Phantasy Star 3. No longer ago than that. Probably 4 years ago. I want to see how much it costs now. Mine was like $5, something like that. Yeah, it looks like it's a little more. $13 loose cart. I'm checking eBay, so I mean, you know how the prices fluctuate, and you look at people selling them at dumb prices. It doesn't you have to look at a lot of these to really gauge what the market value is. Yeah, see, here's one at $10. It's gone up a little bit, but I mean, it's been years, so it's still an attainable game. Phantasy Star 3. I'm glad I got it then, though. And that's it. Those are all Dumay's comments. Thanks, man. It's always good to hear from you. We've got to pick out another shmup, because I hit the wall in Raiden 3. I hit the wall. And I don't have Raiden 5 yet. Let's play Raiden 4. I'm going to make a Raiden 4 video next chance I get. I got other things on my plate, so maybe that'll never happen. I don't know. I like shmups. Let's play more. Death Adder Multi-Princess comment. Oh, no, I haven't read it yet. This is another one. Oh, wait. Hang on a second. When I read Death Adder's comment earlier, I think it was cropped at the end, and I didn't hit read more or whatever it is. One of my favorite. In all due respect to the Mondo Roundverse, a term coined by Alex Swingle circa 2001, but Bithead 1000 is hands down the best YouTuber in the now defunct YouTube gaming community. The guy is a national treasure. One of my favorite Bithead moments is from a much older video where he calls up a reseller to buy Earthbound and sends him to the wrong house on purpose. The whole call is on video. I went to find the video to link to it and you left a comment. Lol. I'll leave a link regardless for the masses. It's cool if you aren't a booze hound. Soda tastes better and you don't wake up on the kitchen floor spooning a box fan with only one sock on. Below are links to 2 other YouTubers you may or may not be aware of, who I enjoy and have that old school YouTube feeling, and most importantly don't seem like D-bags. You guys can head to the YouTube channel. He left a comment with links. You guys can check it out. But he has Ball and Nick and Sandom Todd. Ball and Nick I have heard about because I've been rewatching all the Bithead 1000 videos, and they conversed back and forth. So that's how I found out about Ball and Nick. I haven't watched any of his videos yet, but I went in, did that initial cruise of the channel, and hit the sub button. This other guy I'll check out. Yeah, that Bithead video where he calls the guy, the guy gets all mad. Oh, that's a classic. I saw your comment as well. I believe your comment was "I love you" or something. Good times. Light Studios says, "I'll do some Doom Night as soon as you can explain why you didn't read my comment on your website." You know what? I didn't know there was a comment there until you said it, and now I have to go into my Blogger account, Sendu, and I gotta figure out what that comment is. So bear with me, because I'm logging into Blogger right now. We're gonna set all accounts right, because that's what we do. We do right. We do right. That's what we do. All right. So I'm gonna go to Tiger Claw Radio. Give me a second. If I click on I never use this. I don't have enough comments to warrant working on it this way. I found it. 10/4/2017. It was on Goodbye September, so it was an oldie. This is a comment to you to say how do you do. Would you care for a rhyme? And would it be a crime to ask this upon you? Can I be on Monstercast 2? On Tiger Claw Radio 203, Goodbye September. Of course you can, Sendu. I have no idea when I'm going to get this done. No idea. But you and I will do a recording session. I need to get you on there, and I need to get Darabka on there as well. I need to get a lot of people. I got like 2 solid sessions to build on, and then I ran out of time just doing other things. But I'll get you on there. trying to think if that's it. You know what? It's not everything. It's not everything. Hang on a second. There's a couple things I got to do. Let's head to, you know what? 1 second, let me pause it real quick. Where did all the static come from? I just paused it, and I went back, and there's like a ton of static on the last little bit. Where did that come from? I do not understand how this works. It's got to be the cable. These cables have to be ultra sensitive, because this is all still pretty new equipment. But I noticed that sometimes I get fuzzes, and then I wiggle the cable, and they go away. And it was like that on my old microphone too. The the Snowball, that was the popular mic for a long time. I had one of those, and that's what happened with it. The cable, I mean, it still works, but the cable, the connection was super, super delicate. And if you touched it, it would drop, and then because it was a USB device, the computer would read it as if it was disconnected, and then it would crash your recording. I don't know, man. I don't know. I need to get my earphones plugged into the soundboard when I do this. That's the only real way I can make sure that the recording is quality every time, is if I can hear it coming back through my ears. That's eventually I want to get there anyway, so that I could put in some live double over sound, like audio comments I could put on a thing and then listen to the thing, and I don't know. That's enough technical stuff. Nobody likes to listen to that. It's like the most boring thing to hear on a podcast is the technical difficulties. All right, so let's go to the last remaining thing we have to do, and that's to go over the comments from Mr. Alex Swingle. So let's waste no time. No, he writes, number 1, how many seconds did it take you to disown your son when he told you he didn't like the Sega Master System? I know in modern day 2017 it isn't couth to hate unorthodox lifestyles, but that must have been a crushing blow to learn your offspring is a Nintendo fanboy. Yes, I'm making a veiled homosexual reference for laughs. Alright, let's respond to that. He only saw a couple of games for one moment. You know, there's plenty. If your first introduction to the NES was, some of the terrible NES games are out there, you probably feel the same thing about that. Bear in mind that he loves the Sega Genesis. So, I think we're good. Sega Genesis and the Wii. Because those are the systems we have that get played. Right? He really dug the Ouya when we had that too. It just stopped getting played because I lost the thing. Number 2, Phantasy Star 4 is legit good. Also, that game is always expensive, but it certainly has gone up from the casual $30 price range it fetched. Makes sense to me considering the retail was $100. Whew! I didn't know that. And it had a limited release. After someone who played like 8 JRPGs that were modeled after first-person dungeon crawls, it was awesome to finally see your characters attack instead of a strobe light flashing the enemy to death like in Dragon Warrior. That, and there were very few secrets plus padding in the storyline. It takes about 40 to 50 hours to complete everything, and you sort of need to do the side quests if you want an excuse to level grind to the appropriate stats for an upcoming boss. I'm pretty sure it didn't innovate, but it did everything so well, and it might be considered the first game to do it right. There's some BS moments, but it isn't often. It does the typical story JRPG where you're required to lose a boss fight. Sort of BS every 2 or 3 times, if I remember right. The last things that it has is about 4 dungeons that are a bit labyrinth-like. It has nothing as extreme as Phantasy Star 2 or 1. You are not the only one pooping on Phantasy Star 2. You are reciting a Steam review talking about the game's level design being maze-like, and it triggered me hard. I wanted to state the facts. Alright, let's take a pause for a second. I got nothing against Phantasy Star 2. First of all, as far as the levels being maze-like, I can't comment on that. I must have been reading a comment or something, because when I played Phantasy Star 2, I didn't level my guys up enough to get that far. I only put like a couple of hours into it. The first thing you do in Phantasy Star 2, once you get, into the town, is you start leveling up. That's the first thing you do in that game. It left a good... yes, it was grindy, and it left a good impression because the music was nice, and I liked the atmosphere. Characters are modeled a little bit differently than like this typical chibi style you see in JRPGs. So it definitely stood out in that regard. Hang on a second. I just got a message from AliExpress. Wait. I missed an eBay auction. What'd I miss? Mischief Makers. Man, that sucks. Mischief Makers was a game for the Nintendo 64 my friend Engie liked a lot as we were kids. And I was following an auction, and it went for about $15. And I would have bought it for that money, but there's other things I want to get right now. Mischief Makers, that was good Nintendo 64 game, so I hear. Let's get back to what we were saying. Phantasy Star 2. Don't peg me too hard on my opinions of Phantasy Star. I haven't really taken an honest shot at any of those games. This is I have to be very, very reserved with what I say about those games. All right? I played very little of Phantasy Star 2, even less of Phantasy Star 3. Now I've got the original one on the Wii, and I've played even less of that. I pretty much just fired it up to see what the title screen looked like. And 4 is coming in the mail, so even less of that. All right, let's get back to the comments. It's actually a lot worse in regards to the Next Round podcast. We still have been recording each month for the last 13 months. I haven't been giving proper time to edit the podcasts, but they are backed up in multiple formats, so they will come out. I just need to focus on them. They would come out sooner if they weren't cringeworthy moments. Each recording that served no one being in there. For example, my 4-minute explanation of Steam games that play like out-of-the-park baseball, but were an actual game instead of being a spreadsheet simulator. Ooh, diss. I also recommend you seek medical help for your early Alzheimer's, because that last recording wasn't September of 2016. In fact, your last appearance was March of 2017 recording. We are still up to date as of October 2017, with February of 2017 being the only date all of us didn't record the podcast, as Dorabka jokes. The Men in Black RPG session is our February podcast for the month, which you should listen to just for the tragic ending of Sean's character. Spoilers. There have only been 2 special occasions you've done for the podcast. The pilot episode, which still splits my sides after you recited your goals for the podcast to last no longer than 45 minutes tops. You know, taking a break from the comment, that's especially funny considering this episode that we're in now being the longest one ever. As well as your Patreon return to the airwaves by declaring a podcast a swear-free zone. The first promise ended by episode 6, and the second one lasted 4 episodes. Those were good times. All right, let's take a break here. You know what? I'm okay with the way those things went down. Those were my visions for the project. All right? Those were my visions for the project, and they were what got me started. My vision for TCR was very, very different at the beginning. It was very different. I would dare say now things are exactly the opposite of what I thought they'd be. I started TCR as a supplement to TCTV. That's something I could do when I didn't have the time to make long videos that took a long time to edit. I could just make a podcast and be done with it. Now it's the opposite. Now I make videos, quickly when I don't have time to do the podcast. It's exactly the opposite. So again, it is what it is. I do the best I can to keep a swear-free zone, but it happens. It happens. It's I got hundreds of hours of podcasting audio out there. It's not going to be hard to go find me doing something, saying something that I probably wouldn't say today. All right, let's move forward. Those were good times. 6, prepare your butt, because I did not combine my previous backlog in TCR 204. I've left a comment since TCR 190 and have been meaning to. The last 3 months have been distraction intense as I prepare for the winter onslaught second market merchants have to go through. That, and I've been focused on downsizing my collection of crap I've hoarded over the years. My hopes is to release 2 TCR-length comments each podcast until I catch up. The following replies to my own novel. I give you the 203 backlog as well as this one. Good luck and Godspeed. And that's the end of his comment. Good stuff. Let's move on to, let's see. He replies to his own comment with a bunch of comments about previous podcasts. And you know what? We're already way over what's reasonable in terms of a podcast length. And I got a little time to finish this up, so why don't we just go through them? Hang on a second. There's people talking right outside the door. This is terrible. This is terrible. Nobody's going to still be listening now. All right, TCR 203. Breaking news. Quake Champions is so successful that after 2 months of being in early access on Steam, it's now in the humble monthly in October. Instead of overheating the podcast with my backlog of comments wanting to go, I'll submit them a little bit at a time. Here you go. Episode 193. Number 1, you've been complaining about the small view. I read this already. I read this on the air, dude. You've been complaining about the small view count for tomorrow in videos. The problem I see is you decided to record a Let's Play of a game that thousands of people have done Let's Plays for, and they all are filled to the brim with boring time waster moments. The majority of people will assume you are another one of those people who upload you yelling at your mom for 5 minutes while sitting in the merchant's window the entire time. Basically, just make them and don't care for the views, since you can't change the perception that people have for that game. Fair enough. Let's move on. Number 2, games I grew up with. Here comes my pithy response. Every game is a game I grew up with due to the fact that we grow old every second. Oh, boy. I'm going to have to make assumptions as to what you meant by a game I grew up with. And games you're asking about are games I routinely went back for a few years of my youth. I still don't have an answer. There are certain games I pine for and never have the willpower to replay a game just for the sake of replaying it. At most, I would say Lethal Enforcers 2, but it also falls into the game into the game of goal-oriented mission because once I got to the last stage, I was done playing that game, and it's been 16 years since I last touched it. My final answer would be Skyrim. It activates all my tisms in just the right way. Okay, for realsies, it would be Target Earth. I was blown away by the art style and how brutally hard it was while being fair. There was no route memory required, BS I hate in games, and it had bullet patterns that were a pain to get through. Man, the more I think of it, I want to Phantasy Star 4 just for the impact it had on me with games. Still, I stick to Target Earth because of the bar for what I expect mecha games should be. Can I pick Armored Core instead? Too long didn't read. I love robots. Let's take a break before we move on to number 3, which I think is his wrap-up. Good times. All right, let's move to number 3. Your imitation of Death Adder's voice. I agree. Southern Tard machines him to a T. Wait. I read that wrong. I agree. Southern Tard matches him to a T. There you go. Death Adder's response to me calling him a tard. Just because I'm in my 25th year of first grade and know the exact measurements of Hulk Hogan's arms and reproductive organ doesn't mean I'm a retard. The R word, if this makes it to air. I think I'm okay with saying retard. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. Back to the comment. Trips over a moonshine jug and falls into... Yeah, jeez. Okay. Yep. Oh, yeah. There's more. There's so much more. Look at this. It just keeps going. All right. TCR 194. You talked about needing a team to root for when watching video game tourneys. I still find it stupid for anyone to care about a single Korean mashing on a keyboard, even if they're more Korean at me than mashing that keyboard. I remember when G4 had the Halo 1 tournament, and I laughed as a young man-child because I played the game and thought to myself, let's see who's the best spawn camper for the most overpowered weapon in the game, the pistol. And sure enough, I watched 10 minutes of the first match, and the pistol got more kills than the most kills, and 90% of the kills gained by the winner on round 1 was a dude spawn killing. I just don't see the merit in caring about a specific team. Now, watching to see what happens, I'm down for that. I don't care who wins, as long as something cool happens in the process. Like when I watched G4's Arena show, which turned out to be scripted events. Ugh. All right, now let's take a break before we finish that. You know what? You could say the same thing about baseball. Why bother watching people hit a ball around? Basketball. Why bother watching people throw a ball around? Football. Why bother watching people hit each other so hard that they get early onset Alzheimer's and then ultimately throw a ball around? You could say that about all those things. It's just entertainment. The thing is, with professional sports, a lot of these franchises are so old that it's easy to get invested in them, right? I mean, if you're a sports guy. I think the big problem with esports is it's like impossible for me to get invested in any of these people. It's not just that I need somebody to root for, because there's teams out there. I mean, I could just open, a tournament bracket, pick a team, and okay, that's my favorite team. But I'm not invested in any of these people, and I have no reason to be. I have no relation to them. There's nothing about them that makes me admire them, apart from their prowess in video games, which I don't deny. It's just they're just guys. They're just guys playing the game. I turned on Evo, and this last Evo that happened, I got to watch 5 minutes in the first day, and it was during Street Fighter V qualifiers. And it was just Street Fighter V footage. I don't know. I didn't care who the people were. I mean, that's just I don't know. It's just how I feel. Maybe it's me getting old. All right, let's move on. You called me out for liking Killer Instinct, and I asked if I had rose-colored glasses about it. As an average Street Fighter 2, it's as average as Street Fighter 2 for me. I'm not into fighting games to begin with, as I stated on the previous PCR, and the balance isn't there, so my passion for winning and losing is diminished. Last time I played Killer Instinct for the SNES on a device that is 100% legal to play on is in 2005. Excuse me. It held up exactly as I remember it. It focused on combos like every fighting game, and I love the soundtrack as well as the character design for all the characters, even the palette swap on Glacier and Cinder. In other words, for an extremely filthy casual, I like Killer Instinct. Alright, Swing, I'm raising my mug to you. Fair enough. I cede. Killer Instinct. It's okay, alright? You guys can like it. I will try it again one of these days. We'll see how it goes. I think that'd make for a good video. But for now, we'll just have to agree that you like it. Death Adder likes it. I know it's not my favorite game in the world. TCR 2005-7. You still don't beat me for Android box, since your phone costs you more than $0 along with the adapter. Plus, it isn't a competition. I'm observing that the price for these gimmick consoles is higher than they should be, as a price example used to prove how cheap it is to get high quality hardware on the cheap. The Android box I use plays PSP games at the full price, at the full 60 frames, as well as the 3DS. It's a modern marvel to get hardware so cheap they can play pretty much everything prior to PS2's hardware. GG, mate. Are we even close to finish? Yeah, we are. TCR 197. At minute 38, you called Death Adder a Canadian. Normally, I'd smite you where you stand, as required by Commandment 5 in the Cult of Death Adder, but I will let it slide this time. The Destroyer of Worlds is a native hick from the southern lands of America. He's one of those rare half-breeds who likes the sweet tea and slavery, yet doesn't have a heavy accent. I agree. It's weird. As an aside to the Dark Souls wine fest from me, I'm more amazed a human being above the IQ of 60 can't recognize it's a badly done game meant for tryhards. The game itself is a whatever. That was why I made such a big deal when Death Adder kept doubling down that he liked it. It was making it out... it's like making out with a lady and she stops to inform me that she's my mom. Just the shock and confusion. Now I'm okay. At minute 52, your insane masochistic love of the Gygaxian homage to the Gygaxian homage, the Wizardry series. I've attempted 6 and 7 and 8 of the series to see why you would enjoy such cryptic puzzles. I've concluded the whimsical madness after walking over the tile of falling asleep in okay, you know what? I'm going to skip this a little bit. Let me explain it to you very slowly, Alex. I played those games when I was a kid, and that's why. I know they're not good. Wizardry 5 is one of my favorite games. It is not one of the best games. Does that make more sense? If you go play the Wizardry games trying to see what I'm going to see, you're not going to see it. It's one of the reasons why it's worth it to get other people's opinions, because we look at the world differently. We look at video games differently. Yes, our memories as children tend to taint our opinions as adults, but they're stories worth sharing. It's one of mine, is that we had Wizardry 1, 2, and 3 as kids. My dad bought them. We played them as hard as we could. I didn't play them much. I mostly just watched my brothers play them. I mean, I played a little bit, but they required like physical map making, and I was so young at that point I couldn't keep up with that kind of mental investment. I don't know. My thinking wasn't complex enough to handle what Wizardry was at that time. I just opened up the manual and I saw the line drawings, which were very much a copy off of the Dungeons and Dragons manual drawings at the time. And it captured my imagination, same way the player's handbook would have. And there you go. That's Wizardry. There it is. Okay. I did cut your comment off. Let's go back to it. But it's still rough thanks to the game being a first edition D&D and all the characters having less than 50% chance to hit for their first few levels. And that's a Gygaxian dungeon crawler. I probably would have served jail time for beating him to a pulp due to his douchebag design of having fun. 8 was the most playable out of the bunch, yet once again, it's a stat-heavy grind fest, yet none of the stats are explained outside of high numbers are good, maybe. Now, I didn't mind putting 30-plus hours in a game to figure out why it's so great of a series, but there has got to be a better way to have fun. Yeah, there is, I guess. Number 3, at minute 62, you talked about having trouble getting guests for the Monster Cast. That's because you have to bother emailing me. Yeah, it's not having problems getting guests. It's having problems taking the time to pursue them. There's plenty of people that I've spoken to who I would like to get on the show. I when I have time to produce material, I tend to do the podcast. I tend to do what we're doing right now. All right. By reality, and never message me back that day or the next week or the next month. I'm still willing if you haven't gotten sick of tolerating my sass. TCR 198, rip your Famicom adapter dreams. Amen, brother. I did get a Famicom though, so I'm okay on that front. Number 2, you talked about upgrading your PC parts potentially. It was I who mentioned to you you could spend about $200 to upgrade your GPU from a 750 Ti to a 1060 GTX. The price is now $250-ish, but the point still stands that the hardware is 3 times the hardware capability compared to the 750 Ti. That and the power efficiency is amazing enough to rarely use its fans, not that it matters to you. Basically, wait for the next gen series before buying a new graphics card. Most games are good enough for your 750 Ti, and it won't cost you $200 and $300 plus driver frustration, like I had to deal with my first year of owning a 1060. I sort of regret buying it if it wasn't for the fact that I saved $80 in the long run thanks to Bitcoin miners jacking up the GPU prices. The driver support was still awful, and I had an experience I don't recommend. You know what? My priorities and things have changed since then. I still want to make that upgrade, but I'm not. It's not on my radar right now. So I think that's exactly what's going to happen. It's not going to come back to me until the next generation of graphics cards come out. But that's it, man. Thanks for all of the writings into the show. Where are we now? Jeez Louise, we're 2 hours and 10 minutes in. Look, guys, whatever got you here 2 hours and 10 minutes in, if you're still with us, thank you very much. The show is for you. I'm raising my coffee cup right now. God bless. I'm rooting for you. Have a good week, okay? See you in the next one.